How's it going, everybody? Jason here. Welcome back to the channel, and thank you so much for watching. Today I'm going to do a 1-year update on the Positive Grid Spark amp. So I haven't done a Spark video in a while. I've been meaning to put together a 1-year anniversary video because now I've had it for a year and 2-3 months or so. But I thought I'd put this together now because in about 20 hours from now, Positive Grid will be doing what they call a big update on the Spark live on their Facebook channel. So I'll leave a link in the description below. It'll be happening 4 p.m. Eastern on July 23rd. So I thought I would combine my year-long update with what would be my wish list in a huge announcement, as they're calling it, and then also close off with some pros and cons about using the Spark for the last year and a half. And I'll leave links in the description to everything that I'm talking about, as well as always very detailed timestamps and descriptions so you can skip to the stuff that you really want to hear about. So first, let's get into the announcement. They've done a couple of teasers that basically make it look like the update is going to be some amp heads. So they have a little 15-second video clip where they show 3 amp heads stacked on each other. And if you're looking at it in a small window, when I first looked at it, I went, oh, that looks like signal chain routing. And then you look at it, you put it up to full screen, and it's like, oh, it's just 3 amp heads. But they kind of, the way they made the video made it look like something a little bit different. They're also talking about a Spark gear drop. And for me, that means there's going to be stuff added to the mobile app, which should come as no surprise because if you're a Soundshed user, which was created by Chris Cook, he's already added some extra amp heads and effects in there. So obviously it's capable of adding that stuff. So I would expect that's probably going to be the limit of what they announce. I don't consider that a big update as well. If I were to put together a wish list, I would say the number one thing for me would be the ability to customize your cabinet. So that's one thing that is missing compared to anything else in the price range of the Spark, and even a little bit lower. So this THR2 that I have is roughly the same price. It's 20 bucks more. It has the ability to change and customize your cabinets. If you're Line 6 user, I used to have the Amplify TT. It also had the ability to customize your cabinets and also change from 4 different microphones. So that would be a big announcement for me, and something that's kind of missing in the Spark. You're kind of stuck with whatever default cabinets they've used when they modeled the actual amps. So that would be a neat thing. Another neat thing would be is if they announced either an official desktop app, or if they announced something like merging together the whole bias effects ecosystem together somehow, which would be really cool. So if there was some way of, you know, maybe creating things within Bias FX 2 or Bias Pedal and being able to load them into the Spark. Obviously, that's probably a very huge technical undertaking, but that to me would be something that would be huge. And I've seen a few comments, not too many, on it would be neat if you could kind of use this feature with that comes with the mobile app for the Bias FX with the Spark, or if you could take a pedal you created with Bias Pedal and load that into the Spark. So that would be really neat if they announced it, but I doubt it. I suppose if you really wanted to go crazy, and if they really are hyping this as a huge announcement, a version 2 of the Spark with lineouts and a foot controller and you know, some of the things that the mod community has really solved, but that's very doubtful as well. There's a couple of comments in Facebook and stuff about what people are expecting, but who knows? All right, so the 1 year and a bit update, I guess, for using the Spark amp. I guess the ultimate question is, if I had to go back in time, would I buy it again? And the answer is a 90% yes. And I say 90% because the main reason why I bought the Spark in the first place was for the Smart Jam and the auto chords, and I never use those features because they're terrible. I would much rather use Fender Play app or ultimateguitar.com or some other dedicated guitar app for learning and improvising with and playing along with. I don't think they work very well at all. They're very clunky, and I never use them. And that was really number one reason why I bought the Spark in the first place. So a 90% yes is basically because of all of the other pros. Looks great, sounds great, works as a Bluetooth speaker, it can act as an audio interface, so it's very versatile, from clean tones to dirty to fuzz to high gain and everything in between. I think it's very easy to get awesome sounding tone out of this thing. Now, I'm not one of the people that will say, hey, does this $300 amp compare to this $2,600 Marshall JMP 800? Because that doesn't make any sense. They're never going to sound the same. Even two Marshall heads aren't going to sound the same. But what I will say is the tones that come out of this thing are awesome. They will obviously never match something that is 5 times the price, but they still sound great no matter what they are. And if you've watched any of my other Spark videos, I mentioned a bunch of times I kind of follow the Nita Strauss approach to guitar tone. If it sounds good in here, I don't care what label is on the front of the amp head. That's kind of the way that I go. So I think it's pretty easy to get awesome tones out of this thing, and it's easy to record with, and it's very versatile as well. I would say another pro over the last year and a bit is the dedication to updates that Positive Grid has done. So they've done a ton of app updates, and pretty much on a regular basis. You know, you can pretty much expect within 3 to 6 weeks, somewhere in between there, they will do an update with new features. Usually the pattern is to 4 weeks or so they do what they call a major update and they add new features. Then they do 2 patch releases to fix some bugs and plug some holes and that type of stuff. But at least it's been consistent, which means they're probably dedicated to keeping this thing going for a while. As opposed to the Yamaha THR, I think there's been 1 update over the last 6 months or so, and the Line 6 product, I bought the Amplify TT maybe a couple of months after the Spark, and when I bought it, it had been 7 months since the previous update. So it's very cool to see that they actually are continuing to improve it. So mods for sure, given there's so much love for this thing because it is such an awesome product, there is such a huge community around creating mods for this thing, and they've really fixed the major problems that most guitar players feel that, you know, this thing is lacking. Number 1, not having line outs. Number 2, not having a foot controller. And number 3, not having battery capability. And I guess the 4th would be replacing the speakers as well. Those are kind of the top 4 mods that people have done with the Spark. Mostly because it's so easy. I mean, if you want to replace the speakers, take a guitar pick. This is just Velcro. It pops right off. You've got 4 screws there. There's 2 pins that go into the speakers. All you really need to do is get 4 ohm speakers that are 4 inches, I believe is what this is. And whammo, you can switch the speakers, so it's easy to do that. It's easy. The back is 5 or 6 screws, I believe. You can take that off and the whole circuit board comes out, and then you can wire your line out to it as well, or wire your foot switch. So the fact that it's really easy to mod is awesome, and the fact that there's such a huge community around it is pretty awesome. Now, like I said, for me personally, I wouldn't, because once you get into doing that, you know, if you were to build a foot switch for it, replace the speakers, add line out capability to it, at least in Canadian dollars, you're looking at, you know, you're getting close to $700-800 spent. And when you get to that tier of pricing, you're into some other higher price products that I would instantly pick over this instead of modding it. But like I said, it's awesome that it can be done. Again, with the mods, and like I said, I am a Soundshed user. There'll be a link in the description to the review I did for that. It's flawless. So I don't even use the Spark app anymore at all, because I'm always down here in the studio. I've always got it plugged into through USB here, so I use Soundshed to control all of it. And like I mentioned earlier, Chris has some extra effects that have been loaded into that. So that means it's capable of loading other types of models. I haven't looked at the GitHub project to see exactly how that's done, but the fact that it's so easy to create customizations with the hardware and with software is a huge plus. So there's a bunch of other really easy, simple cosmetic mods as well. I mean, the 4 I mentioned are really the big 4 that would be a deal breaker for some, because some have said, well, there's no foot controller, therefore it's a deal breaker. And I didn't mention this, but AirStep also now does have a positive grid spark foot controller dedicated that will work with this as well. So I think it's 129 bucks, and whammo, you get a foot controller for it, so you don't have to build your own. Some of the other ones, people have modified the grill here to say Marshall. My real nitpicky stuff is I wish the knobs were on the front, but there is somebody that had like a sticker template you could print out, and it will have the stickers to match the location of all the knobs. For me personally, I would just like it in the front, but then that obviously takes away from the aesthetics, especially if you're using it as a Bluetooth speaker. That's what I like about the THR. Number one is how it has the different effects and levels of the effects built into the same knob, and they're right there in front of you. It's easy to see, but that's just being really, really nitpicky. Some of the other mods, putting foam into it to dampen some of the low end. I would like to say it makes no difference at all, but I'll probably be YouTube canceled for saying something like that, because I guarantee there'll be somebody who's worked for NASA for the last 500 years on soundproof technology and frequency, whatever, on their space shuttles will say, yes, if you put a 30-cent piece of foam into a $300 amplifier, it will make it sound like a $9,000 Marshall. So I won't say that. I'll just say, to my ears, I didn't notice the difference stuffing foam in there. So one mod was, because the speakers just pop right out, you can line the inside with foam, and it will help with some of the muddiness and the bassiness, or you can take the grill off and you can simply grab your foam and you can stuff it in the base port there, and that's going to dampen some of it. Neither did anything. Foam, whatever. If you're using this regular acoustic foam, the reason why I would like to say it makes no difference is because this stuff does nothing with low frequencies. I'll leave a link to a Prime Acoustics article that shows different frequency response for different types of material, and this type of cheap foam will absorb higher frequencies, but it won't do anything for lower frequencies. You need a different type of product to do that, and even then, the analysis shows that it's kind of negligible, and I can only rely on my ears. When I put that stuff in there, it makes no difference at all. And the last thing about the Positive Grid's dedication to improving the app, you can see how many new features have been added over time. So the last update, which I believe is 1.9.4, which was 3 weeks ago or so, they added the ability to back up your presets to Dropbox and restore them. So if it gets lost for whatever reason, you can get that back pretty quickly. They did organize the UI a little bit better, so it's cool that they have the little graphic on the main settings screen that shows you if both of the Bluetooth connections, the status of the connections, because previously it was you click the hamburger menu and then you'll see either connect hardware or hardware connected, but there was no other visual notifier when you would lose Bluetooth connection. And for some reason I would always seem to be losing Bluetooth connection. I know one reason was because I would do screen recording while I was connected to the Spark, and that was one of the reasons why it would do it, but it just seemed to be pretty flaky with the communication between it. So it's nice that it has that screen there. They also improved the tone cloud sharing because it was really hard to find anything. The search is still not great. It still doesn't allow you to do really good fuzzy searches to find stuff, even though they say that was an update in 1.9.4. But at least the tone sharing now, if you share an actual tone, if you click on that share link on your mobile device, it will open up the tone cloud and it will go directly to that patch. So it makes it a lot easier if you wanted to text your buddy and say, here, try this tone out, and you text him that share link from the Spark app. It will open right up in your buddy's Spark app, and it will take them right to the tone. So it's pretty easy to do that. And then you could do some really neat things with some automation with Zapier or Integromat if you wanted to create your own tone cloud for whatever reason. But at least the dedication to improving the app, they've improved the usability, the Bluetooth connection, adding the Dropbox stuff, adding the better tone cloud sharing, and some of the other features that they've added over time. And again, pretty consistent with the way that they've done it, so that's kind of cool. All right, so to wrap up this video, yes, I've used it mostly for practice, sitting here in front of either Fender Play on my mobile app or in front of Ultimate Guitar. I never use the Spark app, like I said already. It's always plugged in through USB, so I'm always using Soundshed for it, and I use it for recording probably 90% of the time. If I'm just down here noodling and practicing, I go to the THR. Number one, because I like the tones in the THR better overall for my style, which is more like rock, blues, country rockish, adult contemporary, I guess, kind of style. But when I get into the metal side of stuff, then I definitely reach for the Spark, because the Rocker V, the BE 101, and the JM 45, the tone just sounds awesome. So like I said, I'm a 90% yes on would I buy this thing again. So remember to tune in 4 o'clock Eastern tomorrow for the Positive Grid live event where they're doing the huge update. I'm going to do an update video on that as well. Remember to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.